When you start living with the end in mind, everything starts to change. What are people going to say about you? What message is your life going to speak when you're long gone? Because you weren't born by accident. You didn't just happen to be where you're at and happen to watch this video. There is always a reason.
Here we go. Boom, we're live. Yeah, I'm pumped. When I Googled you, I found that podcast you did with Hiraina and with Jay in the after your feed, because he mentions it in the podcast that you guys are sitting in a van.
Let's crack up, bro. Steamy windows. It didn't look too good from people walking past. You know, there's like three people. There's steamy windows. It didn't look like quite the Christian conversation, if you like. Crack up.
Yeah. Wow. But man, I'm excited. Love what you're doing. Love your heart, and I think it's going to be a great season for you. But all right, here we go. We're on. We got a few people on. You should be able to see the comments on the right side. Do you see anything that says comments on the top right?
No, that's okay. I'll see it a bit later. I might not be able to respond.
Yeah. Are you on a computer or phone or iPad or?
No, my Apple's down. I'm just on phone.
Okay. Cool. We got people just saying hello, good morning. I think you might know some of them. Do you know Francis, Arios? Do you know those names?
Yep. Arios, brother Arios, Palmerston. Yep.
Yeah, there you
Francis
go.
Langi Huna. Kia ora, whaia. Kia ora, brother. Morning to everybody. Top of the morning, whānau.
Cool. Okay, so all these people you know are going to show up. Hey, this is going to be fun. Do you guys just want to share this around? We're going to start probably in another minute and a half. Just let people know, those that you know would be interested in this conversation and would benefit from it. Bring them on here and we're going to go for it. It's going to be awesome. I'll just share this on my page as well. Cool. It's gone. Good morning. Hello, Wiki. Good morning. Emery, good morning. Cool. We're nearly ready to go. This is going to be fun.
Cool, Joseph.
Have you done a live video podcast before?
Yep, done a few interviews.
Cool.
Yep.
Cool. So you're a pro. We're good.
Oh, work in progress, maybe.
I've had many people who've done a lot of interviews and podcasts, but never live video ones. So it's always a different dynamic, but it's cool.
Yeah, cool for kids.
All right. Well, here we go. Welcome to our Fuse Life podcast. This is episode 107 or 108. I'm a bit confused right now, but we've had 3 this week and they've been amazing. This is the 3rd one. And as you know, we're all about God-given assignment and purpose and how every person has a unique purpose, divine design, original intent. And we're helping people walk into that. And all our guests carry this unique expression. And my guest today is no different. He has an amazing story. He's been through a lot. He's going to share a lot of that. But most of all, as you guys know, I'm a heart person and he has the heart of the Father. I've had the chance to meet him a couple of times now, talk through a couple of things, and I'm really, really excited for this conversation. So, Stacey, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you, brother. Thank you.
Hey, just for those that don't quite know you or what you're up to, can you just share with people where you live, who you are, what you do?
Okay. So, kia ora whānau. My name's Stacey Raika. I'm this year 49. I'm married to my beautiful wife, Hiraina, who's getting ready for work at the moment as I'm talking. We have 10 children, our oldest being 30 in April, and our youngest just coming on 18. And we also have 10 grandchildren. We reside here in Levin. Our passion is the gospel of Jesus Christ and sharing of the love of the Father and the grace of the Father to the whomsoever's. So everything that's based within that space, that's the core of who we are. For the last 20 years, really, we've had this incredible encounter with God that we couldn't unlearn if we tried to. And we wouldn't want to because it's just awesome and amazing. That's who we are in a nutshell, brother, here.
Awesome. And let me throw in there. So Stacey's been a pastor and he's been in ministry for a long time. Him and Hiraina are now itinerant ministers. So they're traveling around the world. They've done a lot of things around the world. And so we're speaking to someone who's been there, done that in a way, right? So I'm really, really excited. Usually what I like to do on a podcast is go back to the beginning and kind of track your journey to then come into a message that's burning in you right now, you know? So can you take us back a little bit to your early days? Did you always know God as a kid? Were you in a Christian home? What was it like?
Yeah, well, I always like to start. I had a grandfather who was a man who revered God. I can remember being the age of maybe 7 years old, and just understanding that I had a grandfather, but I didn't understand. He was talking in a language that was different to me. It was, I guess I could use the words now, deep. He was in just continuous contact with God daily. You know, he lived in a batch on the side of our house in Otaki, and he had no power. He cooked on a fire. He had no reason to, but he decided to set himself aside and live that lifestyle. And so most people would look from the outside into our home and think, well, your God's not real because you've got 4 sons. One's a gang leader. The other one's a gang leader, you know, gang member in the South Island. You've got another son who's heading that way, and there's another son who's living his life somewhere else. But what people didn't realize is that when God answers, it's not necessarily in our time, but seeds were being sown in that time that I didn't understand, brother. So was brought up in that home. So we've got a praying man on the side of our house, and then we've got this house that's, I guess, if you like, we've been lots of gang members in our home. So to people looking from the inside out, we're thinking, how does that work? It didn't work. But we would find that years and years later that my father himself, just cutting it short, he would have this incredible encounter also after my wife and I. I'll just share with you, Joseph, and the listeners, that one day my dad came into the house and he was all 6'5", high and wide, big man. And he sat down and our kids started going to Sunday school and they jumped on their papa and they like to just draw on his face with their fingers. And they said, Papa, we learned a new song. And there's a deep voice that said, what's your new song? And then they said, Jesus loves the little children, all the children of the world. Da, 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 da. And I found that my dad started to break down. And this became a continual weekly ritual, if you like, where Dad would turn up, the kids would come home as mokos, and they would sing him a new song. And then after a couple of times, tears would start to run down his eyes.
Wow.
So I guess the impact, the prayers of a father, the seed sown into a man for that particular time, with all that he was carrying, you know, God was, he was plowing the heart of this man, which is my father. So he became a born-again believer. No, I went to Auckland as a young man, and I met Hiraina. We had our first child at the age of 14. I was 15, going on 16. Hiraina was 14. And her name is Gemma, our beautiful oldest daughter, which is 30 years old now. So living in South Auckland, our religion at the time was rugby league. I loved rugby league and everything that came with that, the drinking culture, you name it, we were doing it. We were living our lives big. And just within those years, you know, you could have everything but be the most emptiest person in the world. We had money, we had the clothes, we had the cars, everything you could have, but our relationship was a mess. As to going further on in our relationship, everything that I didn't want to be, but I witnessed in my home in regards to family violence, I became. And it was like a vortex of going down. You could see up where you wanted to be, but it was so hard to get out. And we didn't realize that it was a spiritual battle, not a physical one where we could actually climb out. Cut a long story short, brother, in the year 2000, we got married. And all hell broke loose. We got married, and that should have been the best time of our lives. We just found, I guess, just with that whole covenant of God, God was non-existent in our lives. The covenant of marriage. Then all of a sudden, things just went kablooey. And at a particular time, we were sitting at a table with some particular people who were manufacturing particular substances. So our little bit of money that was sustaining us was about to become great. We were at a crossroads. Is this the table we want to live in? Is this the place and the life that we want to live with our children? Cut a long story short, my violence was at a height at that time towards my wife, towards my children. I just knew, be strong, be stronger. These big boys don't cry. That's the way I was groomed. I was groomed to be, you know, man up, not like the man up we know now, just like man up, toughen up, be all that stuff. I'm the man, you're the woman, all that rubbish. Yeah. So I was brought up in there. I went to work this one particular day, Joseph, and people that are watching, and I was working in Mount Wellington. We lived in Pukikohe, and my wife rang me. And so she's a strong woman. And so I've never heard her in a broken state. Maybe she rang up and she said, "You need to come home. Something's happened." One, the alarm bells went, someone's done something to her, and I've never heard her in that vulnerable state, if you like. I said, "I'll come home." I get home. My wife's there in a pile of tears. There's a rope hanging in the doorway. Two of our babies are asleep. The rest of the kids are at school, and she was stoned, and she wrote a note, and it was a goodbye note to her kids and to me. And so, it's still really raw, and that really got me. But then she says to me, and these are her words. She says, I think I saw God coming through the light in a window. And then straight away, my walls went up and went, "Oh, I've come home to hear this rubbish." Anyway, she kept on sobbing, and she says, I'm telling you. And this light came in and just said, not audibly, but within her spirit says, "Forgive as I've forgiven you." She goes, "I don't even know who this is, what this is." And so about that time, we normally start arguing and just going for it, left and right and fist to fist and everything else that comes in. But she just sat in the state of brokenness. So I said, "I'm not coming back to work today. Just going to do lunch, do the kids, get dinner ready, and then she'll be right after that." Well, she sat like that for a good week, just in a broken, vulnerable state. And it wasn't so much the brokenness, what she was going to do because of me or because of circumstances in her life, but it was this awesome, overcoming, supernatural encounter that she had with God. And once again, I'm talking about truths. When God touches you in a particular way, as he did with my wife, you can't unlearn that. And so that moved me to a space. Joseph, so what happened from there is she fell in love with this God that I couldn't see, I couldn't beat up. Normally I'd just knock on your door and I'm going to sort you out type fella. And I got jealous, but I don't know how to explain it. How can you be jealous of something you don't see? But the very thing that I couldn't see, I witnessed by way of how Hiraina was acting. She was no longer the person fueling the fire within our arguments, vice versa us. She always just had a good thing to say when I had terrible things to say. She was walking around the house with the Bible, maybe reading it, not understanding it, but she just found a peace and she knew that it was God. And so from there, I guess most people would say the downward spiral happened, but the beautiful thing happened that God was bringing us into a new season, and that time of transitioning was going to be some hurt and some pain and some surrendering, not because I had to, but he was going to give us revelation that if we do allow ourselves to be stripped, he was going to make something beautiful out of something that hasn't been, if you like. So we come to Otaki, Joseph, in 2000. Hiraina started going to church with my uncle, and who was an ex-gang member with my dad, senior gang member, found the Lord. And our kids were going to Sunday school. And this one particular day, my uncle, I've actually feared him because he was a notorious knock on the door person in the middle of the night. And he said to me, in his new voice, "Nephew," soft voice, he said, "Nephew, why don't you come to church? Your family's coming." And I went, "Yes, uncle, I'd love to do that." And as soon as he walked out of the door, my horns came out. "Oh, uncle this and uncle that, and rubbish Christian and rubbish church." So I said, "Okay." I said to my wife, "I'm going to come to church with you fellas, and I'm going to show your God he's rubbish." So really behind the scenes, Joseph, I was actually scared because no one's been able to, not to tame my wife, but she has, she's a tough person. But all of a sudden she's become this incredible, different, soft type person. I was scared of that because I'd tried to make her soft in my own ways and my controlling way. Didn't work. And someone who you can't even see is doing it to her, and it's happening. Thank you, Holy Spirit. So I go to church, and here's where the encounter happens. There's people, we're about the youngest by 50 years. So I get in the door straight away. I go, "Oh man, old bags, old rag. What's this place?" It's I won't say what I thought. It's a something place. And so I walk to the front, and some of the ministers, it's a brethren church, so you don't actually have a pastor in regards to leadership. You have a team of leadership, which is a beautiful thing. And one of my cousins, who I sort of dislike because of his Christian beliefs, and he goes, "Come and sit over here, brother." I looked at him. "I'm not your brother, I'm your cousin." I went, "Oh, yeah, I'll sit down." So I had a cap on. I put some shades on, dark ones, turned my cap around. I had gumboots on, and I just wanted to be rebellious as I could.
Mm.
And my cousin got up, and bless his heart, it wasn't the power of his sermon. It was before he started. I felt these two hands come on the top of my head, on the inside of my skin, work slowly. And then when it got to my shoulders, it was just this incredible embrace of a being of some type, and just held me and worked slowly down my body, and it just felt like warm oil, pins and needles. My spirit man was just jumping like it. What is this? And I broke down in the middle of the sermon, and I mean, I didn't just go whoo. I cried. I mourned deep into deep, like deep. Oh, I'm sure stuff was being delivered out of me at that time. But the greater thing was this incredible God that encountered me on that day on my road to Damascus turned up at church,
Wow.
and that's what happened. 22 years later, here we are.
Bro, that's amazing. Hey, I want to ask you something. Like, no, man, this is awesome. And hey, if I ask you a question that you don't fully want to go too much into, we can just keep weaving, But you keep mentioning a couple of times like this resistance that you had with Christians or Christianity and that kind of thing. What do you think that was? Like, because I think a lot of people have that, right? What was that for you? Like, why were you like, oh, I don't want anything to do with that?
Yeah, well, from what I saw from Christianity when I was growing up, as I said, my grandfather, I'd have to go and get his paper every day. I think it was 8 cents at the shop. And I looked at my grandfather and I looked and I said, man, if that's Christianity, my grandfather's crazy. He lives with no power. I don't want that. That's no life for me. And then I could look on the other side of my house when you're living in the other side of the riches and the gold and I just guess the bragging rights to be the man, all that type of stuff. I sort of looked at them and went, man, I want to be this one. But I didn't quite understand that one. So my resistance, whenever Christianity come to me, I would look at my grandfather's life, how he was living. I just want to say, Joseph, and I've shared this with my family many a times and friends, that although my grandfather lived as a hermit within his relationship, he was a man that had far more than rubies and gold. He had it all. We didn't realize. We saw a physical presence of a man living to his God, but the true essence of his life was the spiritual work that God had within him and his communion with his God. So if you can make sense of what I'm saying, yeah, he lives in glory now, but he was a rich man. He was a rich man.
Yeah. Wow. That is so good. And so, okay, so you're going through this crazy journey. I mean, it's a crazy journey. Your wife has this amazing encounter, and now you have this amazing encounter. So what's next?
Yeah, so what's next? We have this amazing encounter. We come back to our house, and my uncle, he shows me this video, Hiraina and I, it's called You've Been Left Behind. I think it's in the 1950s or 60s, and I just went, what? This Christianity stuff's funny. But I remember these three blonde guys, they're playing the song You've Been Left Behind. And I just guess there was a fear at that time that fell over me. So I just went, I need to do something. I don't want to be left behind. So I was introduced to my uncle introduced me to Jesus. And he said, this is what we do. Okay, now when we share that, and it was shared to me, we don't quite understand. There's a journey about to take place in regards to growing into Jesus. So I've done that stuff. And I thought, yes, I've done it. I'm not going to Hades and hell and all that stuff. And my uncle didn't share too much with me about the life and the lifestyle change and transition into Christianity. I thought I'd done it and just carry on living my life and go to church on Sunday. I really believe that. Do what I want to do. Turn up on Sunday and then carry on. But as we were, Joseph, we found that because someone gave an illustration that we were like two wild horses up in the ranges that just came down with everybody else, and it's just a time of stripping just to bring you into community. And I was like, that's some deep stuff. I don't even know what you're talking about. But we found that we ruffled feathers everywhere we went. We had a desire to serve our God, to know him. We were so young. We had lots of yesterday with us, all around us, our baggage and everything. And so it was going to be a hard 10 years of brokenness, resentment, religious thoughts towards us, and people who are very religious. So but our intentions and our hearts were changed from the inside out. We wanted to go this way, and just like I saw, we're flawed people. So lots of those flaws came out left, right, and center, day after day for many years. It was a journey.
Wow. And then how did you end up, like a pastor and doing ministry and church leadership and all that stuff?
Yeah, I'll tell you, Joseph, a little story about that. So you were talking about there is a purpose for each and every one of us as individuals and within the space of a collective as well. We witnessed that there, not just because people said, but we found that within our lives, we're really people. We could see that God was moving in particular areas. So once again, young Christians, a real zeal and a heart's desire. Sometimes the flame was sort of being blown out by the older people, like, oh, you need to do 20 years and before you can become this. But really what I didn't understand, the truth of it all was there was a character to be built, to hold, if you like, the purpose that God wanted us, He was going to propel us into. So I desired to be a pastor or a preacher. I just found that was my niche. It was alive in me. And I didn't think it was God at the time, but it was suppressed a lot of the times. And so we were in a particular big church movement, and we moved to another church. It was a big church movement, one of the bigger churches in New Zealand. We were frontline worshippers, and we were still dealing with stuff just because we were. And that was taken away from us by leadership. And tell you the truth, Joseph, I'll speak for myself, for about 5 years we mourned, and I walked away from the church. I became depressed. I felt that I wasn't valued, not because of my gift, but because we invested our lives, our family. We ate with you, we drank, we slept. But there were people who would meet us in that place, but when it was the time to transition as family, come to your house, we're sort of like, oh no, the door, this is where we do our thing. And then when you go home, and I'll go home type stuff. So the depth of the relationship that we thought we were forging was not that. And so that disappointment came. We loved them dearly. And then to the point when we were moved out of leadership, we were sort of excommunicated, and our dear friends saw us in the supermarkets and just looked other places. And so that hurt me dearly, That hurt us dearly. Hard place to come back from. Very hard place to come back from. That's about 5 years.
Yeah, I think many people can relate to that. I think, especially when we come in and we're ready to go all in, and we ask questions, and maybe people don't like to ask questions or answer questions, and things blow up and stuff. So then, how did you bounce back? How did you decide? How did your heart change, and what happened with the depression and the wanting to be away?
Okay, the depression stuff that hung around for as long as I allowed myself not to be in fellowship or in contact with people. I actually became scared of people knocking on my door, became scared of the light to open the curtains. I don't know why. I knew it. Where I came to the point, which I won't go into detail at the moment. I'd rather my wife here too, where we separated for a time, and I ended up in hospital into a particular ward, which I thought I belonged in, but the depth of that ward was way beyond me. But anyway, it was a place where it allowed my mind to settle. So came out of that place, and we decided as a couple, we were separated still, but we decided, hey, the best years of our life have been in the space or in the presence of God. We know our way back, and we know how hard it's going to be just to walk in the door with anything to do with God. 1, Otaki's a small town. 2, Otaki knew all about us. 3, there's a great resistance of the enemy to hold us here because he wants us to be here. We knew that. Easy said. So we decided to go to church, an apostolic church in Otaki here this one particular day. And we're lovey-dovey, and we're like, yes, we're getting here. We get to the car park. They'd already started. They're singing some waiata, some songs, some hymns. We get to the door. We both walk in, and we turn at each other. And I'll tell you what, all hell breaks loose. We have this humongous argument with everything, every word you could think of in the dictionary, in the foyer of the church. Now there's a pastor there who's in the Wales now, and he's a little skinny Welshman, and he comes up to me and he goes, mate, I don't know who you are, but God says he wants to love on you. And I looked at him and I said, I want to love on you too, bro. And so we go outside. He closes the doors. He says to the elders, take care of the church, do the sermon, whatever. He's got a cup of coffee and he's shaking. And he follows us into the township where the church is sort of like in the middle of town. And we're having this big slinger of a doozy. And people are diverting in town. Oh, let's turn right. Let's not go around that. Big argument. And he looks at me and he's crying this time. And so I'm trying to argue with Hiraina, but then he caught and I said, why are you crying? You don't even know me. And then in between he goes, look, I believe that the Father wants to love on you, Stacey. That's your name, Stacey. Want to be a part of your life. Da, 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 da. Anyway, Hiraina and I stopped doing what we're doing. We settled down. And this pastor says, I really mean it. Let's catch up. And so we did. But just before we caught up, my mind started playing tricks on me. It's sort of like, okay, now you have to do this to come into a space where you'll be accepted to come to church. That was my understanding, eh? And then this young man who's a pastor, young pastor, he's dyslexic. So it's a mission for him to do his sermons and stuff.
Wow.
He just loved on both of us for about 3 years. He listened and just prayed and loved. And we talked everyday story, nothing too super spiritual. He walked through our valley. And so that was our coming back, our prodigal son, prodigal daughter moment coming back in. He left, and about 5 years later, he returned from the UK, from Wales, and he came back to the church. And we weren't at that church no longer, but we come in, and I gave him a big hug, and and just said, "Hey, man, we really appreciate everything that you've done. We love you, Pastor." And he just said, you know what, Stacey, you just needed someone to love on you, and someone to believe on you in a time when no one was believing on you, no one was loving on you. So the small practical things make big differences in big lives. Maybe not the big words, the big accolades, but just the thought that someone can sit there and listen with the love and the grace of the Father. And so we've captured that, the love and the grace of the Father, his way, the way.
Yeah, wow. Man, I definitely feel like you carry the heart of the Father. Like when you were telling me, that there was some violence and stuff in your past, and I can't even believe it, like, because of your heart is so soft, And so you come back, and then what? What happened from there?
Yeah, so we came back, and we were humbled, obviously, within that time. So we were walking in a manner to be teachable, eh? We understood that in that time we learned also that you might have the gift, but a character will be forged in the time that where God can use that. Not that you're going to be perfect, but you're going to understand that your character be beyond your gift. And so the word says that, God will use your gift to bring you into places of people. And so it wasn't that God's going to use our gift to move a mountain because you can do that by your gift. He was going to allow your gift to present you before people, and it was going to be his love and his grace by the Holy Spirit, and how he's going to do that, the mountain might be moved. So then we got most of the equation there. Okay, here's our gift. We need a character, and it's not dependent on our gift, but it's dependent on the Father's currency, which is love and everything else. Yeah. So we learned that space, bro, and we done a bit of Bible college, and I really couldn't read. I just really couldn't read that well. We sort of got through that, and then we were ordained as pastors by a man called Jack Gurin, a senior pastor of the Apostolic Movement in Shannon, in a small community there. And then from then, we sort of were directed in the area of itinerant ministry. It just opened up where we were moving around the country, just sharing our story, really, just the brokenness, I guess for Māori men or men in general, we're not too open about those types of things. But I mean, in my brokenness, God done something in me to use my brokenness, my ugliness, to bring forth the power of his love, to release not just me, but to help release other people that some people's closets, mine was family violence to a T. But when he does what he does in you, if you allow him not just to break you, but to rebuild you. He takes that very thing that Satan had hold over you, and he brings it forth, and he says, well, actually, that was a counterfeit, but here's the true purpose and why you've gone through that. And because you've allowed me to, this is what it can become. A chrysalis, a cocoon, a butterfly. I'm not such a butterfly, maybe some bigger type of animal, I don't know.
Wow, man, that is amazing. And so I saw articles of you traveling to some of the islands, Pacific Islands and stuff. Can you touch on some of that? Like, what have you been doing, and any stories that come to your mind that, that are amazing?
Yeah, absolutely. There are many stories. A couple of one story that's really dear to my heart. We had the opportunity to go to Samoa in the time of the measles epidemic. So there were kids dying everywhere, families mourning. You could just imagine. So we got to stay out in one of the villages called Samusu in Alepata, for those of you who know, in Apia. And we stayed with an incredible mother and father in the faith. And we've never been, we've been over to other countries, but this was a country where we went and there's a language barrier, bro. So we're sitting in their house, we get introduced. They can't speak English, we can't speak Samoan, in the middle of nowhere. And so it's like for the first half an hour, And we're in this place anyway. And the daughter comes back from school and she can speak English. Hallelujah. So all of a sudden we're able to dialogue. And then we just explained to them, because we were just dropped off on their doorstep and they're taking us. We said, we're here just to love on the people. And in this time of the measles, to pray for people and to be harvest hands, working hands in your community, however we can do that. Wow. And the whānau, once again, reminding me of my grandfather. They might not have had much, so rich. And so they got us to move around the village. And Samoa is a Christian nation. But once again, just in everyday practical life, whether it's family abuse, whether it's poverty, there's some sort of suffering in everyone's lives, and it was poverty in this place. We got to visit this one family, and it was a lady, her 2 children, and her husband. Her husband would have been in his late 70s. He had been lying under a tree for 11 years, lame and blind. So he's lying on a whāriki, a mat under a covering. Can't see, he can talk a little bit, blind, his legs are all buckled up. The wife was weaving just to make kai. Their kids it was real poverty. I'm not mentioning any names or stuff. Beautiful whānau.
Yeah.
And we turned up and she just cried for about half an hour and hugging us. And we're just saying, and she asked the interpreter, why are they here? We said to pray and stuff. So she took us to her husband and we prayed for him. We prayed for his sight, healing for his legs. We didn't see that physically. The woman cried and wept, and she just says, thank you for coming. And she hadn't been to church for years. She had lost hope, faith in God. And this one particular Sunday, we were going into church, and the next day we're coming back to New Zealand, and this woman comes up the aisle crying. And if I may say, a lot of people looked at her and went, oh no, like Coronation Street. Oh, here's that lady. Here she comes, unfortunately. But she reminds me of the lady with the issue, if you like. In that time of the lady of the issue, she grabbed onto the garment of Jesus. She wouldn't have been accepted in the community. Why? Because she had the blood issue, that whole thing within their culture. She didn't have a blood issue, but she had the issue of not being into church for years. She saw a religious spirit just pop up. She came to the front with all she had. We knew it was everything she had, a lava. And I said to Hiraina, I really don't want to take that, because we know that, that's a huge thing, feeding her family, and she's done this. And my darling said to me, she said, we must, because she's come with everything she's had. And she hasn't just come to you and I, but she's come to the presence that when we were there, the presence of God, that's what's drawn her here. So that was my highlight, bro. She came to the front of the church. She didn't get up and say, I'm renewing our vows to God. She just fell in a state of brokenness in the front. And I said to Hiraina, I says, oh my gosh, if we were here for such a time as this, as a representation of the love and the grace of God, no matter how far or how deep the hole's been, that they might return, we can go home and it's been achieved, whatever God wants to. We got that sense. That was probably the biggest out of all the missions that I found, bro, was in the absolute brokenness, the reconnecting, the restoration of someone's faith in God, that God had not forgotten about them. He sent to whosoever's in there to love on them like we've been loved on also. Why don't you come back in? The Father's waiting for you. That was the biggest thing. Yeah.
Wow. Man, I wanna ask you about love. You know, I've heard you mention a couple of times how that's the Father's currency, that's heaven's currency. I feel like you have an understanding of love that's quite deep. Can we talk on that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So just coming back to my encounter, I had not known love that I know now, and I mean that in all humility. I don't know love, the true depth of it. None of us can obtain that. But the love that I know now, that I've come to witness, it's a currency that is seen, it is felt, but it starts from a brokenness within oneself. I don't think that you can love, or you can be an impartation of love, until there's a brokenness where your heart is broken into a point that God can come in. And it's hard to explain. He has done something within our brokenness, that we love on people, not for return love or anything else, but there's just such a compassion, compassion for other people. There's a compassion. I have a compassion now. I was quite racist in my younger years, bro. So when you're brought up in the gang, in that gang area, the gang's first, and people are black or white. And guess what team I was always playing for was a black and white. Now, I don't force it, but when I see other ethnicities and whatever they're in, there's just this love that comes out, a desire, like I've known you all my life. I love you as a brother. I don't care what color you are. I don't care if you're a Muslim or anything. It's not because I'm trying to be that, but God has re-established something new in me. So what am I talking about love? For the people that are listening, in my own simple way of explaining love, don't search for love, but allow your brokenness to receive love. See, if it's a currency of heaven, it's not something you can turn up and work for. It's something that God will impart to you when you're willing and broken vessel. When you're willing and broken vessel. So I can't actually talk about the exchange, how that happens. We know it happens by Father. My own case, it happened in a place of brokenness where my heart was able to be teachable, to receive. And so our love comes from a place now of not having to do something, to be anyone, to look a particular way, to get favor with you. It comes out of a genuine move, which I call the heart of the Father. People might say, "Oh, how do you know that?" It's in me. It can also be in you too, if not already.
Man, I love it. There are so many ways we could go here, but you wanted to call this the way. Can you touch on that a little bit? Like, why the way? What is the way? What does it mean to you?
Yeah, okay. So the way to me, it's always been for Hiraina and I. We've always talked about, looked at church logos and stuff, but it resonated in our hearts that when we read the book of Acts, that we know when the Holy Spirit come, and then the people became the people of the way. So for me, in regards to church, the first beginning in Antioch, the first people were called people of the way. Christians, there's a whole other big spill on that, and there are other people's thoughts in regards to what a Christian is. So when you present it as the way, people go, well, what way? You get to talk story, eh? So we get to tell biblical narratives, and then we ask questions, and then so they're ticking their boxes towards an area, and we just say, so this is the way. Oh, that's because Jesus, I said, yes, he is the way, and this is his way, and this is the way to the Father, and this, and all that. It's just the space that it has open answers. So you might give an answer, but it still has a question attached to that. Endless. And so as evangelists and stuff, here's the way, the truth, and the life. Yes, all those things, but there's so much within the way that opens up conversation for whatever religion or whoever you belong to, or if you're an atheist or whatever. People always want to know, well, what's the way? If you say, I'm a Christian, well, it's a Christian. Oh, no, all of a sudden, we're sidetracked. There's a concept of, oh, you're this, you're that. And so it's like, oh man, we're climbing brick walls here. So the way.
Yeah, love it. And I totally get what you're saying. When it comes to the body, like, and you've gone up and down the nation, you've gone to other nations. I'd love to know some of your thoughts on, 2022, the way church is done has to change. The pandemic thing has shaken everything up. What are your thoughts on what's happening, what God is doing, and how the body can respond?
Yeah, cool. I like the word body, bro. As I mentioned, just in regards to what we were doing earlier on, we were fellowshipping with everyone as young Christians. That church, this church, we didn't know. It was all God. And then the reality came, and we were told, oh, no, you can't go with them because they're Baptist. And we're like, what's that? What's a Baptist? We didn't realize there were factions, eh?
Yeah.
As we move up and down the country now, I really believe that churches and even pastors are, for whatever reason, searching out what does it mean to have a collective thought and to be as one in the nation. We can see that God's, he's knitting that as we speak. So there are a lot of people within the spaces as we move along having those conversations. As we know that as the times are, that God's provoking us into the space that we have been. I'd just like to mention, bro, that when the Hebrews, the Israelites, they were put in the side of desert, and they were put in the desert for 40 years, the wilderness, okay? And so what we look at now, a lot of people within the Christian circles too, I just want to bring some understanding, is that, oh, God's left us, he's done this thing to us, and now we're paying for it. That could be true. But if we line it up with biblical narratives, when God took his people out of Egypt, they were so stuck to Egypt that they had to spend 40 years in the wilderness. And so here's the thing, while they were in the wilderness, that God turned up for all those years and he fed them with manna. So for us as a nation, just getting this message out there, that if we can continue to believe that God's still sending his manna now, but there's a process, and his process is stripping us, remaking us, because I want to tell us, whānau, that you thought life was good before. I think we were so far off the mark that God intervened, and he's broken us in a sense to redo us. So within the nation, brother, as we get up and down and we're hearing these conversations, the house groups are incredible. They're happening across the land with you also. And my take on that, bro, is the importance of house groups is that we understand how to live our Christian lives in relationship with God, not because the pastors taught us, but because we can seek him first and for ourselves. So we can live our lives out in that space truly. We don't have to turn up on a Sunday. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not dogging the churches. But 1 hour a week on a Sunday is not good enough for the 7 days a week in my life. So how do I take that 1 hour a week? I put that within my relationships in my house group, learning about God for myself and being in connection with them. So often it's so easy to be fed, go to church and get fed, and then that was a good word, and okay, it's Monday again, back to work and wait till Sunday. I'm not dogging the church, but I just believe that as we move around the country, overseas even, that God's strengthening his body. And is it church? Absolutely. We are the church. We are the bride. He's returning for us, not for the building, but for the body of Christ. I'll be glad if I'm just a toenail. I'm in there.
That's going to be a quote card right there. I'll be glad if I'm just a toenail. Love it. I'd love to maybe ask you some more questions on this, because I love your thoughts. Like, I think that you have a deep understanding on this for what's coming, and so that's why I'm poking and prodding, if that's okay. Like, I just love to know your thoughts. Is that cool? Just on some more things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey guys, I just want to tell you about our Royal Hybrids group coaching program. Over a year ago, the Lord started speaking to me about a group of people, a tribe that would only get their value, their affirmation, that would only get their identity from who they are in God and nothing else. And from that place, they were going to do great things on the earth. In the last year, we have seen a whole bunch of people jump into our program, solidify themselves in their identity with God, and from that place, start to engage their purpose. Fuse Life talks about the 6 trees threes: your spirit, your soul, your body, and then your relationships, your finances, and your purpose. We have seen a whole bunch of people come through this, get solidified in who they are, and then begin their own projects, whether it's a teen mums project, whether it's a coaching, counseling business, or a painting business, publishing your children's book, publishing a puzzle book. We have seen people do all of these kind of things, and we just know that this is just the beginning. So you want to go to www.fusebornformore.com/royal hybrids, or just click the link in the caption and make sure to check out what we are doing. We would love to have you as part of our tribe. Now back to the podcast.
Like unity is a big one, right? We've heard people say unity, and they might make it sound like unity means get 1,000 people together and pray one night and now we have unity, or do something publicly like, oh, this person shook hands with this person and now there's unity. Like I'd love to know your thoughts on that. What is unity to you, and how can we foster that?
Cool. Once again, maybe to foster unity, it all comes down to having a supple heart. And it's not, and to become that way, people, it's not to go, here I am, Lord, I've got a soft heart now, you can use me. Once again, it stems from our relationship with God. Father, would you instill in me the quality of unity, that I might know what unity means in the sense of your currency. Lord, my unity, my physical understanding of unity is another loud, clanging cymbal. So I just want to make mention of that. We're understanding it at the moment. I love all my whānau that are in Wellington. It's exploding as we speak and getting bigger.
Mm-hmm.
So if our fight is a spiritual fight, why are we fighting a spiritual battle? Because there's no unity. And I believe that unity only comes through, just for me, Joseph, in relationship with God, because we have the humility to listen to others. If you don't have the humility, the grace of the Father, the love of the Father, that currency, you're always going to listen to someone, but you're going to add on. And whether it's this way, that way, we have, Joseph, and I'll say it loud, we have stopped listening to our God, and we're taking matters into our own hands. We're fighting for the victory that's already been fought. We're forgetting about the scriptures, the Matthew 24, the spinal prophecy of end times. We've got to believe in the process. I think if we're in communion with our God and we're believing in the process of the word of God, we believe it. We believe in the process that's about to happen. It's not going to get better, but as it gets worse, if you like, we grow. We grow. Our light becomes stronger in the darkness. That's why we're here. That our light be strong in the darkness. And so for unity, that may be a deeper place than where it comes from for me. Unity also for me is not an agreement with everything. And it's, but also having the humility that when we're disagreeing in particular things is to hear where people are coming from. So I think behind the shadows, if you like, or behind the conversations, if you can hear where it's coming from, it allows us to get a greater sense of where am I in that picture, only if you're teachable. Where are we? A lot of the time now, we're so on Facebook's one, we sling stuff, but we don't take the time to listen to people. So if we're not listening to each other, we're definitely not going to listen to God. Now that's where it comes from, mate. Yeah, for me.
Yeah, wow. Love it. That is so good. What do you like? You kind of touched on it now. Like things are obviously going a bit crazy in one sense, and in the natural things are starting to be more and more chaotic. And I've seen what you're saying, like a lot of believers getting sucked into a fight that's not theirs. How do you see this playing out? Like, what's your opinion the next 5 to 10 years? If we were to like prophetically have a peek, how do you feel this is going to go? What do you see coming?
Yeah. So just going off Lee Malala's yesterday, his corridor, that really resonated with me, that the process we're in now, it is once again, we've been taken from in Egypt. There's a stripping process before we reach Canaan. Canaan is not on our earth. Canaan is not on our earth. Our Canaan is not here forever and ever. Our Canaan is in the heavenlies, the promised land for us. But I believe that as God's working through his process, the stripping methods, many will fall away. The word tells us that. And I don't just say that because it's in the world, but we can physically, we see that now. It's happening. Many are falling away in the sense, deception, lots of deception, brother, as you were saying. This is the war because we can do it and my voice counts. And talking about the currency of God, if we look at Peter, when Judas handed Jesus over and Peter wanted to take the ear off the Roman, which he did, and Jesus said to him, hey, this is not the way. You live by the sword, you die by the sword. So straight away, a couple of times, Jesus has highlighted that that's not our fight. So what I see, there's just going to be a great falling away, and there's going to be a great growth. The people of God, the ones that hold on, to his words, the ones that are in the secret place praying, the ones that are in fellowship, like-minded people. And it's going to take everything that we have, not our hour of worship, but our lives of worship, to be in that space, to not be the third of the stars, as Revelation says, to be swiped. We won't be led astray or deceived. And that's you and I, that's all of us. None of us are exempt from this. But these conversations within our home groups and on the podcast here, they should give us understanding. So the next few years, 10, 20 years, if you like, it's going to be a great shifting, a great moving. And it's not that God's left us. He loves us so much that he's preparing us. He's preparing us. Maybe it's like the time of Noah. And we know that it says in the word of God that it'll be the same as it is in the end, that there's a preparation. May not be animals coming to the ark, but the sons and daughters of the Most High. God's preparing those who still believe in nations where they squandered and scoffed at Noah and his family. And so here we are. We've got to be prepared for that. So that's what I believe in these times anyway. And for those who are more prophetic, like Lee Malalau, they'll give some more in-depth notion to that. But as Christians, if we're in broadband with God, if we're in relationship, I'm sure you would just go amen, amen to what he was saying yesterday. Because if it's his currency and we're working off the one currency, we're on the same page. Yeah.
So good. Shout out Lee Malalau, the man. That's
awesome,
so
Lee.
You know, as we, I guess, in some ways start to land this plane, can I get you to speak to certain people? You know, like the first person I would love if you could speak to is one that knows that they carry something powerful, they carry something to release, but maybe they don't have a church structure, foundation backing them, or someone hasn't come to say, I give you permission, you know, as a man or a woman to do this. But they're stuck somewhere and they know they have something to release. Can you speak to that man and that woman right now?
Yeah, absolutely. Kia ora, Joseph. So to you, man or woman, brother or sister, young or old, God is a respecter of no man, and the very thing that he's implanted you for his purpose is his purpose and his will for you. So whether it be you're not coming forward in that space for whatever reason, mostly because there is a way and a process within church, let me just say that the authority and your true covering comes from God. Anything else is a counterfeit to say that you have to do this or you need this blessing of man just to work in that space. But I also say get around people, older people, people that can mentor you in that space. If you want to be a great rugby player, well, then you stay around the greats of rugby and they'll train you. If you want to know the way and your purpose in that space and be sharpened in that area, be propelled and encouraged into that area also, be around like-minded people. So here's the thing for the older people and the younger people. We cannot do with the older wise people, and the older wise people cannot do with the younger zealous people. So let's connect. Connect with your elders, people who you can trust that will encourage you in that space. Please don't hold back and think that I'm not a church leader. This is what I have. It's just maybe just a dream that I have. If it's inside you when you know it, grow it. Grow it. Get around like-minded people. If there are people within your lives that say, oh, yeah, but you need to do this, this, and this, well, then maybe you need to just step aside from that circle and find a circle that meets, that's going to grow you into that space. Because if we're all waiting for the perfect moment, well, that'll be terrible, because there is no perfect moment when we're all flawed humans. But we have been given purposes, blueprints within our lives to do things. And that's my thing, is to go and seek God, seek him in that space. Father, this is you. You've given it to me. How would you have me wield the sword? How would you have me work in this space, work with people? I'm willing. Here I am, continuously. Just like Samuel, here I am, Lord. Just continue to wield to him. But you've got to get around people that are like-minded. If you're getting around people for the reason that they're a church leader and you're good friends with them, and you might know, oh, if I hang around here for a couple of years, it might be acknowledged my gift. Your gift, if you've got a gift, it's meant to be given away. It's not meant to be held on. What a terrible gift it would be if I went to Joseph's house and 2 days after Christmas and I went, oh, here's your Christmas gift. Sometimes we have to, but you get my gist? You know, there's a timing for your gift. And just make sure you're in that place to be able to release that, people to speak into it, line it up biblically, all that stuff within that space. It's all encouragement. Yeah. And
so good.
Go well.
So good.
Go well.
Yeah. Two more people we're going to speak to. So second is people that have been through church. They gave their all to an organization or to a church or to men and women, and things happened in the church. Things might have blown up, maybe things that got uncovered, or things happened, and now they've just been disillusioned and they love God, but now they feel like they can't come back, you know, and they're stuck somewhere, not walking with him, but they know he's real. And they have this thing because they've walked through and they're hurt, you know. Can you speak to that man and that woman?
Yeah. Kia ora. Well, yep, that's a little bit of my story. So from what I've witnessed and experienced and learned for myself, it's going to start with you in your closet, in your room, and just coming alongside the Father and say, Father, for whatever reason, my prejudices, the things that I've seen that weren't right, the things that were done to me that weren't right, I'm now going to refocus my lens back into you, back into you. You're the giver and the author of all things, Lord God. Will you forgive me? Will you forgive me that my heart might be supple to be teachable, that my heart might be in a space that where I can continue to walk in the fullness of who you've called me to be and live in the light of Jesus, the true essence. So just in that space and talking like that, once again, that's going to be a hard space, and that could be a journey and a process. Don't be discouraged if you've said that prayer and then you think, oh, it's all good, then I'm going to go out and people are going to be welcoming. But what you're asking in that prayer is that God would give you a teachable heart, a heart of humility, that when you see a resentment towards you, because you will, people are people, they're going to, oh, look, there goes so-and-so who done whatever. But that he might give you a supple heart that you might be able to, in return, engage with true love. And if that doesn't happen straight away, stay in that place, continuing to ask God for that. I can only say that's because that's happened to me. I don't have a prejudice. People might have their views, but the love is so great. The love of God is so great in me. I don't harbor the stuff which held me away from the God that I want to serve. So do not let the hindrances, the stuff that's going to harbor you from coming close to God. First and foremost, come close to God. Men are flawed. They're always going to be there. We're always going to let you down. But if you've got it right first, the broadband connection with God all the time, it's going to set you up for a well journey along your way. And just want to say to you guys, come back to the Father. He's calling us home. He's calling us home. I'm not talking to the heavenlies. He's calling us home to the kingdom that we're living in now. We're living in the kingdom of God now. Time to come home.
Awesome. One last person we're just going to call out is a person who maybe was like how you were at the beginning, you know, maybe they're tough and rough and have done things and have had an upbringing that's taught them things that are very contrary to love. And they don't want to do the religious thing. They've never wanted to do the Christian thing, but they might be listening to you and like, man, this guy's story is like me. And maybe a woman is like, the story is like mine. Can you speak to that man and woman right now?
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to start off with addressing the lady. Just from a man who's been in the space of as a violent person, I just want to say to the woman that my wife, when she had this encounter with Jesus, she said, to whom much has been forgiven, much is required. And so if you're a husband and a wife, and you could be both looking at this or just separate people, this is what I want to say to husbands and wives, that as your man, if he wants to come into this space, and I'll talk a bit more about that, it's going to take a great requirement for you to have much grace and much love in the space where this man is transforming and transitioning from that. Why do I say that? Because with my wife, I said to her, I've changed, darling. That was about a week after, my prayer. I've changed. And she said to me, you said you changed for 20 years. And so I didn't quite get that as a man. And so when you hear that, believe in the process and believe in the God that he's calling out to, because he's turning up. He's peeling the onion skin off your husband so that something beautiful might arise. And so for the woman, I salute you. I embrace you. The love of the Father, that on your journey, if that's you, I know there are many of you that are walking in this as couples at the moment, this new thing. You've been in gangs, you've been in hardships, you've been in violent relationships, and you're still navigating, as we all are. But that's an invitation I want to give to you guys. To our men, those of you who have been like me, you might have been in a gang place, or just a wall of pride, what we call it, which is, I can do it, and you might be big in stature, or you might do it for whatever reason. The greatest men that I know in my days of life now, there's nothing to do about how tough they are, but they've become men of strength. So a man of strength, a man that's a tough man, he can be tough on the exterior, but a man of strength, he has a supernatural power that allows him to walk in a small, skinny body, to have the humility to share love, they have a renewing of their mind, to walk in a space of newness. So if that's you guys out there, it all starts with saying, Lord, it all starts with asking the Lord, Lord, here I am. And these are the things I know about myself. And Father, I want to change. Would you help me to change from the inside out, that I can be the person that you want me to, that I can be the husband that I want to be, that I can be the dad that I want to be. After that stuff, once again, you get yourself in a circle of people, because we've got to live lives. Get yourself in a home group where you can be accountable, not to give them a report like I've done this and done that, but you can have conversations, You can find someone to confide in. I find that with strong men, we're only strong because we've shared stuff with other men and it's been misinterpreted or shared with someone else. So we become stronger. And what does that mean? We close up even more. But just today, if you can find someone to mentor you, not even to mentor you, just to sit with you and do life with you in the ugly times and the great times. And most of all, celebrate the small things, which are great things. Wanted to mention, Joseph, we've forgotten as a people how to celebrate. All of a sudden, we're only looking at things that are wrong in people's lives. Your life, you're not doing this. But when Joseph does something good, we should say, bro, that is so awesome. And then you'll see that as a strong man, that type of encouragement and that talk that you've got, not from being strong, but from doing something small, it'll break you down. But just being supple in your heart. It starts with God. Get in a circle and do that stuff. Yeah. Heaps of talking.
So good. So good. No, I love it. Loved it. Thank you so much. Guys, I know that you enjoyed this and there would have been a massive benefit. And there are people that probably need to hear this, especially the last part, that encouragement. There's grace on here. There's power here for transformation, or for a spark to begin that transformation. So I just encourage you to, if there's someone coming to your mind, to share this with them and give them a timestamp, like tell them to listen to the last part, they don't have to go through the whole thing, but I believe that this is going to hit people where they're at. And I'm super excited about that, So Stacey, I just want to thank you so much. I honor you. I honor your heart. I honor your journey. And Hiraina, I look forward to whatever's going to come from this and hanging out with you guys more. But just the price that you've paid and the walk that you have and the road that you have paved for others to walk through, I just honor that. Thank you so much for being with us this morning.
Awesome, Joseph. Can I just leave with one word? I just want to make mention, Joseph, just for the couples that are out there in ministry, and to my brothers, say this in all humility, you might have been called to an incredible ministry, but your ministry will only be as strong as your relationship with your wife. So we minister together. I think it's important because we live in a motherless society, a fatherless society. Let's be the examples of a true marriage, living in the covenant of God, that where you speak, I speak, my wife does, and they come with us. We're two in one. There's one thing I want to impart, Joseph, very strongly. My wife's going to work now. She's not here because she's going to work. But everything that we do is done together. I'm not the big preacher or the big talker. My wife is just as much as that. And for men, we've forgotten how to do that too, to be inclusive of our wives, because we can do things that's not dependent on that. But the true love of God will show forth in your marriage. Not to say, here we are, we're doing it, but it's a marriage together. We do things together. I just wanted to say that anyway, Joseph. I hope you're encouraged.
Yeah.
Do things together with your husband and wife. Do it together. Yeah.
So good. I think it's pretty fitting that this picture behind me has both of you on it, but the whole time it's only been shown her, you know, and so I want to honor her too. And hopefully I'll have her on a podcast in a week or two, but her carrying her journey, her walking through when maybe other people would have quit and run away, you know, that's a big deal. And so I honor Hiraina too. And I look forward to having the conversation with her, and it's going to be awesome.
So good, Joseph. So good. Thank you, brother.
Awesome.
Thank you, Pano.
Thank you. So, Stacey, you stay with me, but everyone else, we're going to say goodbye. Hope you enjoyed all the episodes. You can connect with Stacey on social media, or you can just Google his name. There's a whole bunch of articles and videos, and he's a people person. So, I encourage you to connect with him. So, hope you enjoy that, guys. Bless you. We'll talk to you next time.
Blessings, Pano.
Faith and patience. Faith and patience. Patience means allow it to happen. Stay the same. Stay persistent. Keep going. Faith, know that it can happen at any moment. Get excited because it can happen at any moment. You were so close. Don't quit now. Keep pushing. You got this.